Welcome back to Midlife by Design. I am your host, Lori Lisai, and I help midlife women learn how to use their human design so they can shed the shoulds and be who they came here to be. Have you ever sabotaged yourself? Of course you have. If you are a midlife woman, you have definitely fallen into self-sabotage. It is only human, and today's episode is for you, especially if you feel like self-sabotage might be behind why you are stuck or not accomplishing your goals, or just feeling like you cannot get out of the rut that you are in. So today's episode is for you, but real quick, before we dive in, I want to tell you that if you are a local, I have some workshops to share with you. First one is this Thursday as of this recording, which drops on October 6th. This Thursday on the 9th, I have a workshop on profile lines at Treehouse in Waterbury, and this workshop is part of an ongoing series that I will link in the show notes. Another 3-part intro series I have coming up at the Sanctuary in the Chase Mill in Burlington. That one's going to kick off on October 30th. And then I have another workshop that I will be co-hosting with Beth Kruger on November 1st. And that's also going to be at the Chase Mill with the focus on self-care, human design, and yoga. So if you are interested in any of those, check the link in the show notes or follow me on social or send me an email if you want to sign up. So without further ado, here we go. Let's dive in. All right, beauties. Today we're going to talk about self-sabotage in midlife. And oftentimes the topics for my show come from my own experience that I am having or have had in the past. And I was just thinking recently a lot about self-sabotage and how even when we say we want something so badly and we even get to the place of taking steps toward making that thing a reality, that sometimes we can fall into patterns of self-sabotage. And so I want to talk about why we actually do that and how you can stop doing that. Because when you're able to stop self-sabotaging, then that is truly when positive changes that make a difference in your life start to take root. So I'm wondering if you've ever had an experience where let's just use exercise as an example, because I feel like it's kind of a classic. But you say, January 1st, you set a New Year's resolution that you want to lose 10 pounds. I don't know, I'm making it up. And that's your New Year's resolution, and you start off with gusto, and you're cranking away, and then by maybe February 1st, the shit hits the fan, if not earlier. And a lot of times it is earlier. And what happens is sometimes when you're setting a goal like that, for example, at New Year's, it's not coming from a place of this internal need or desire to change something. It's more like, oh, well, it's New Year's, I better do this reset. So it's more coming out of this conditioning place. And that is definitely one of the reasons that we can fall prey to self-sabotage. But I want to talk about a few different patterns of self-sabotage that happen in midlife, or can happen in midlife, really can happen anytime. And I want you to just think about whether you recognize yourself in any of these patterns. And please excuse my crazy dogs in the background if you can hear them. We just got a new yellow lab, and he is great, and my dog loves him. But of course, they're using this time to play in the background. So it's good times here. And so Self-sabotage patterns. Tell me if you have experienced any of these. Of course, number one, perfectionism, where you're feeling like something has to be perfect and it has to be perfect before you even take any steps toward action. So for example, going back to the exercise thing, maybe you feel like you have to have the perfect food plan set up and you have to have a gym membership ready to go and you have to have a specific weight program that you're going to do. And instead of just saying like, okay, I think I'm going to go for a run after work today, for example, a definite sabotage pattern is perfectionism and letting that hold you back from taking action, getting started on the thing. Another self-sabotage pattern, which you may not think of as self-sabotage, is overcommitting. And we have talked, I feel like, ad nauseum about this on the podcast, just in terms of being a midlife woman and getting into the pattern of continually overcommitting because it's something that you've done for years and years and years already. And when you're overextending yourself, what's coming through is this pattern of like, I have to do it all. And you're self-sabotaging because you're not then making room for your own growth. You're still committing to everybody else before yourself. Okay, this one I fall prey to all the time. And I was just thinking about this podcast as a great example, which for some reason, even though I schedule time to record these on Thursdays and Fridays, I always find something else to do. And then I end up recording them on Sundays. And now listen, from the lens of human design, I have a defined route. And sometimes, especially with the 952 channel, sometimes that channel just has me on lockdown and it ain't happening. And I need that route to pulse on in order for me to take action on recording the pod. So here I have been on Sundays for the last, I don't know, probably month or so, recording on Sundays because I didn't do it during the week, even though I feel like it feels better when I have it done and I have the whole weekend to myself. It's like, nope, not happening. So procrastination is definitely a way that many of us self-sabotage. And oftentimes what can be at the root of this is some fear, some imposter syndrome, like kind of going back to the perfectionist idea of it has to be perfect, or this feeling of I'm not ready, so therefore I'm not going to take action. Another pattern that might happen is abandoning ship midway through something. So going back to the example of the goal setting, New Year's resolutions for losing weight, say you committed to a 3-month program and you quit right around Valentine's Day. It's like midway through February, middle of the project, and you start to get onto that plateau. And it just feels like you're not necessarily seeing the strides that you did when you first started. And so you're feeling like, I don't know, maybe this isn't the right fit. Maybe this isn't the right thing. And listen, we've had conversations on the pod before about exercise and how it looks different in midlife. And so the kind of thing that you choose to commit to at the beginning of the year may not look the same as it has in years past. But when your excitement drops for the initial goal that you set, then what happens is you can abandon it before it fails. Well, I don't want it to go totally down the tube. So I'm just going to that idea of quit while I'm ahead. But actually then you just end up in your bad patterns again, or your bad habits. Another classic, which we have also talked about so much on this podcast, is people pleasing. Definitely a pattern of self-sabotage where you're letting everybody else's wants, desires take precedence over yours. And at the heart of that could be a fear of rejection, right? Like we want to be liked and therefore we say yes instead of saying no because that might make us seem bitchy or unfriendly or whatever, however you want to phrase it. When in actuality, it's probably just your time to express some boundaries that need to be set. And then another pattern can be self-criticism, where you get into this inner critic loop, which is really about internalized shame that you probably haven't processed or dealt with, and or getting into comparison culture and feeling like your external expectations are paramount above and beyond your own. So those are some common patterns of midlife sabotage. And I want to reframe the reason that these kinds of things are patterns that we fall into, these self-sabotage patterns. At the end of the day, all of this self-sabotage is our body's way, our mind's way, really our subconscious mind's way of keeping us safe. It's about survival. Because remember, we are programmed for the same. We are programmed for keeping things the same because our nervous system understands that. It is prepared for that. It understands how to deal with the current situation. And even if the current situation totally sucks balls, it's still better in your subconscious mind's eye than something different. It's that devil you know versus devil you don't know kind of idea. And so it's a survival strategy. But here is the kicker when midlife and peri/menopause happens. Our body changing disrupts patterns in our lives. Our bodies need different care, right? Our hormones are all over the place. They're in that chaos. And what happens, as we know, because we've talked about this as well on the podcast with the episode, Am I in Perimenopause? We've talked about the estrogen decline in particular and how estrogen is our be nice hormone. And when that drops off a cliff, we give a lot less fucks. And so this is our opportunity for our identity to truly crack open and be redefined. That is what I am constantly harping on this podcast. And if you're still listening, then there's a reason for that. You must hear something about this midlife redefinition that speaks to your soul, that feels like it is time to redefine yourself. And self-sabotage is something that you need to become aware of, because you, in essence, you're fighting for your own evolution. You want to break these patterns of self-sabotage so that you can evolve. And remember, you came here in this human body to experience the human suit, and that means that you came here to experience conditioning. And that conditioning it's all the ways that we are pulled away from our natural selves, our natural tendencies, our energy, right? So the self-sabotage patterns that we get into end up costing us huge, even though we're technically doing them as a mode of survival, as a mode of safety. But really, they're making us more tired with the people pleasing. They are making us resentful. They are making us feel stuck in limbo because we're not making progress on the things that we want to make progress on. Or we're not just changing in the way that we envision ourselves changing. In midlife, so many of us have these big dreams and this gorgeous possibility feeling again. It really feels like this second spring. And we have those feelings and want to take action on them. So it can be so frustrating when we are self-sabotaging. And I want to touch base here on our not self themes, because oftentimes this is what we will experience when we have sabotaged ourselves. So for manifestors, it's anger. For projectors, it's bitterness. For reflectors, it's disappointment. And for generators, it's frustration. Man-gens are going to feel a little anger and frustration. So when you feel those things, this is your invitation to get curious about what is going on. And the more you work at this, the more you're going to notice it when it's happening in the moment. And that is a beautiful thing. If you've not practiced with it, it's probably going to be something where you reflect on past choices and you can say, okay, was I sabotaging myself some way in this scenario? So, for example, going back to the New Year's resolution, when you look back and think about, okay, you decided to quit in mid-February. Was it because what you were doing actually wasn't serving you, or was it some self-sabotage? Think back to what your excuses were. What were your reasons for quitting, and were they valid? And if you can look back and say, I don't know, I think my failure to continue on with the program that I started actually did more harm than good, then that's your answer. If you feel like you were worse off, then there was probably self-sabotage at play. And I've mentioned this subconscious programming. We have so much subconscious programming, and our subconscious is running the show for our lives. I can't remember the percentage. It's roughly 90% of our lives, unfolds due to our subconscious programming. So when our subconscious has a program in play that says something like, we're really comfortable with a little bit of extra fluff on our body because it actually feels safe to be in a softer body, because then people won't look at me. People won't find me attractive and I won't be in danger. That's an example of subconscious reprogramming that can happen around body, around the way that we see our bodies and what happens when they get programmed around safety and security, and that being connected to how we look. And this could be a program that was maybe installed in your subconscious due to some kind of trauma. The self-sabotage can also be a disconnection from your body's cues. From a human design standpoint, specifically, I'm thinking about your inner authority and how can you pay more attention? How can you pay homage? How can you listen and respect and follow that inner authority? When you're letting your body speak for you, then that helps you to understand what is right for you. So dealing with this self-sabotage is maybe a lot of bit of subconscious reprogramming and a little bit or a lot of bit of listening to your body's inner cues. And what happens when you actually start listening to your body's cues and when you take that time to reprogram your subconscious? Well, you end up in your signature a heck of a lot more than you are now. So you end up satisfied. You end up feeling successful. You are delighted and surprised, and or you are at peace those beautiful signatures. So you're experiencing those so much more of the time. And you're also living life with ease and with clarity and, dare I say, pride. So, for example, going back to that New Year's resolution with the fitness goals, when you set those kinds of goals and you do follow through, you get to the end of your program, how do you feel? I mean, it feels so good to have that sense of accomplishment, because it's not only about the work you put in and maybe the physical changes that you see, but it's also about the commitment to yourself. And in so doing, in making this commitment and following through, this is where integrity comes into play. You are being in integrity with yourself. You are doing something for yourself. And when you commit, when you make that commitment to yourself and you follow through, you've shown yourself that you can trust yourself. And this, my friends, is one of the major things that I work on with my one-to-one clients, is learning how to truly and deeply trust yourself. Because if you can do that, there's no stopping you, right? You can create whatever kind of life that you want in this new phase in midlife and beyond. So it's about no longer fighting yourself, learning the tools that will help you to reprogram subconscious and to listen to your body's cues. I want you to think about what is no longer serving you in life. Where are there some patterns that you are noticing where you are either unable to move forward with something, or you just feel like you keep bumping up against a wall in some way, shape, or form? What patterns are you noticing around self-sabotage in terms of the example that you just came up with in your head? The first step is always awareness, right? You can't change something if you don't know there's anything wrong with it. So I'm inviting you this week to pay attention to your body's cues and listen to the voices in your head. What voices are on repeat that are maybe holding you back? You know, what voices are there almost without you even having a thought? It's like those kinds of voices that pop in without, you haven't asked a question, you've barely gotten into thinking about whatever it is. Let's use exercise again as an example. So maybe you are in the midst of resetting your eating habits after the summer. And so when you open the refrigerator, what is the voice playing in your head? What do you keep hearing? And is that voice trying to sabotage you in some way? Like, it's just ice cream today. It's no big deal. And listen, I'm only using exercise and food as examples here because they're the easiest thing I can think of. And, you do you around food and supporting your body and what your body needs. This is just an example. But my invitation for you this week is to notice those voices. What are you hearing in your head? And then where can you just get curious? Like, okay, if I listened to this voice that says, okay, let's just have some ice cream tonight. It's no big deal. We'll get back on the horse tomorrow. If you listened to that voice, what is it doing for you? What good is it bringing to you? So, for example, if you get to eat ice cream and you love ice cream, then are you giving yourself like an emotional high? Are you giving yourself some comfort? Is it like a comfort food for you? Are you giving yourself a sort of proverbial hug? And maybe that's actually what you need. So it's about understanding what's at play here, because you're looking to try to understand what your subconscious is trying to do for you. So I invite you to this week, think about what that voice is trying to do for you. How is it trying to actually help you? And then think about your body's cues and what your body is actually leading you toward. If you're a generator or manifesting generator, for example, sacral lead you to the ice cream, or was it the thought in your head that led you to the ice cream? We're just noticing, okay? That's the first step. This is not about guilting yourself. This is not about making yourself feel worse for making choices that you feel are not helping you. It's about building awareness, okay? And if this conversation hit home and you felt like, oh man, she is talking to me, then this is an invitation into my one-to-one coaching. You know what to do. The link is in the show notes. And until next time, beauty, thanks for listening to today's episode of Midlife by Design. I am wishing you so much more self-awareness around self-sabotage, because as I said, that is the key to change. And if you want to create a plan together, then that is what I love to do with your human design. And one of the things that I find super powerful when I'm working with my clients is creating subconscious subliminals for them to listen to that are based on their human design, which they can listen to as they're falling to sleep at night. And it really helps to reprogram their minds so that they can start to take action on some of those things that they are hoping to change in their lives. So if you want to create one of those together, then you know what to do. Book a free call with me and we will figure it out. And I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.